So on today's podcast, we're continuing the conversation about the findings of the Global Flourishing Study, but this time I'm diving into what the results mean for the workplace cultures we create into the future. Stay tuned to learn more. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today, welcome in. So glad you are here. We're in season 9 of the podcast, which means we have 280 episodes or more at this point. So if you're new to the podcast, I invite you to Google my name, Jason Barger, and just whatever topic around leadership, culture, clarity around mission, vision, values, servant leadership, accountability, trust, communication, courageous conversations, whatever those things are that are interesting to you. I hope you'll check them out and see there's so many great episodes in those 280, and also great chats that I've had with other global thought leaders and friends and people that are really fascinating humans. So there's so much great stuff in the past that I hope you go back and check out. If you're one of the OGs that have been with us from the very beginning, then I'm so glad this continues to add value to your life and your work. And you may benefit from going back as well and just reminding yourself of some of those past episodes. So my commitment to you as always, the listener, every time you tune into one of these, is I want to make sure that this breathes some good oxygen into you. So I hope the content that gives you something to think about and also helps you to think about that temperature that you're trying to set in your life and your work. And I hope it just gets you thinking in some ways that stimulate some good progress and action on your end, however you're thinking about it. Before we dive into today's topic, if you'll do me the quick favor, if you will, of course, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that yet. If you'll, hit 5 stars and leave a review, rate the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. If you'll leave a review, your own authentic words, that's super helpful in all of these things for them to help the algorithms work and amplify the messages. And also just in a very noisy world, it helps people see real humans that say, hey, this is meaningful and important in the world. So thanks to everybody that takes the time to do that. And then lastly, anybody who helps share the podcast. So whether that's on social media, whether that's with your team or your colleagues or friends, and you say, hey, let's listen to this episode and then let's talk about it. Those are all the ways in which these messages spread. And that certainly is the point. So thanks to everybody out there who helps amplify these messages. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On the last podcast episode, just right before this one, I introduced the question, what does it mean to flourish as a human being? And, I shared that humans have studied and found answers to many things in the world, many elaborate things over the history of humans. We've found a lot. We've researched, we've discovered all kinds of things that are really quite amazing. However, the question of what causes a human being to flourish has been harder and harder for many people to define. And so just last month and on the last episode, I was sharing that when the Global Flourishing Study, which was led by Gallup and many other scientific partners, released its findings from their study across 200,000 people in 22 countries, I was invited to tune in and be a part of the results. And if you didn't listen to the last episode, I do invite you to go back and just get some of the main findings of the study, and I share my reflections on it. And I'm going to try to highlight a little bit of it, but I invite you to go back and listen to that episode just so you can get the general findings. And then today I'm going to really focus on what does it mean for workplace cultures. So on today's podcast, we're continuing the conversation about the findings of the Global Flourishing Study, but this time I'm diving into what the results mean for the workplace cultures we create into the future. Stay tuned to learn more. But before we dive deeper, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Okay, again, the Global Flourishing Study initial findings were just released last month after the comprehensive longitudinal initiative tracking 200,000 participants across 22 culturally diverse countries, I think it was, and spanning 6 continents. And again, you can learn more and dive as deep as you want at their website, which again is in the notes, globalflourishingstudy.com in the show notes. And again, the last episode, I gave my reflections on what I was hearing, what I was seeing, some of the initial things that came to the surface from my vantage point, which I think is helpful. But today I'm gonna dive a little deeper. I will just remind you of that coming out of this study, the findings really focused on these 6 dimensions, is what they call them, 6 dimensions of flourishing that rose out of the research. So these 6 dimensions are all at play for what they say as somebody who's flourishing in their life, that these 6 things are at play. They have meaning and purpose. They have close social relationships. They have character and virtue, mental and physical health, happiness and life satisfaction, and financial and material stability. So, again, I'll invite you to dive as deep as you want in any of those categories at their website. And also, again, I gave my reflections on the last episode. But, we made the connection that many of the dimensions are shaped by the mindset we bring every day to our life and our work and our relationships that we form. We also established why this study or the talk around human flourishing is so important right now in the world. Why might it be helpful for us to get a better grip or understanding and practice of these 6 dimensions? Well, because so many humans on the planet seem to be experiencing the opposite of this flourishing. This kind of languishing is the word that's been used, but kind of going through the motions or just merely existing, kind of drowning in a world where moments lack meaning, lack connection, lack health, lack stability. And so as the mental health challenges across the world have been at all-time highs and reports of loneliness and isolation increased, this practice of flourishing is needed. So today, this episode, I'm focusing back on those 6 dimensions that we talked about, but I want to look at it through the lens of the significant role that they play in the workplace cultures that we create in the future. And after all, like as I'm hearing these things and these studies were revealed, I certainly was connecting it to it as just a human being, and in my own life, I was reflecting on what do these things mean for me, and do I have all of these 6 dimensions at play, and if so, how, and how do I stay focused on them for me individually? But where my mind then very quickly went to, especially with the work that I do in supporting teams and organizations, and the reality that we as human beings, our places of work, where we work, are often the places, the spaces, the people that we spend the most time with in our lives. And whether we like it or not, are the places that often get most of our attention. Again, that doesn't mean that I don't strive to be a great dad. I certainly strive to be a great husband, friend, a father, all of the things. But the reality is, if you just add up the number of hours in a day that we spend focused, that our places of employment often get a higher amount of our attention, and our focus is required. And so the average human being spends more of their life at work than any other place or environment. So, which is one of the reasons why workplace cultures, in my opinion, have always been critical, but are so critical to human flourishing and are so important to what people actually are looking for in the world today. So I wanted to provide some quick thoughts on the 6 dimensions and how they relate to workplace culture. The 6 dimensions, again, I'll go through them here, but I'm going to give some thoughts on each of them and how they relate to organizations and workplace culture. The first one being meaning and purpose. We know that the best workplace cultures help their people find meaning in their work and their life and have a purpose for why they exist. If you think back to studies that have been done around the best organizations, I think about Jim Collins' work in his book Built to Last, where they studied why did some companies, exist over a 100-year period and continue to exist, and others seem to trail off or blow up or disappear when they had basically the same conditions. And really, a lot of it came down to their ability to kind of remain rooted in the meaning and purpose, the core of why they even exist. And, they at the same time, they were stimulating progress. So this connection to, do we have meaning and purpose that aren't separate from our work life, but do we have this kind of meaning and purpose? You also may recognize that from past episodes I've done on this pod, this shout out about this idea of meaningful work. Shout out to my friends Tamara Miles and Wes Adams that go back and listen to those episodes that we did about this research around meaningful work and how powerful that is. And really what people are looking for is cultures where they find this kind of meaning. And in many ways where these 6 dimensions are being practiced. And then their performance goes up. So this idea of meaning and purpose within our organizational cultures is certainly important and powerful now, let alone where we're going into the future. The second dimension of close social relationships, what I'll say within our workplace cultures is not that we need to have BFFs, best friends forever all throughout our work teams, but what we do know is that relationships are critical. We know that we find greater satisfaction and our performance actually increases when we feel connected to the people we work with. So the best places, the best cultures now and into the future will help people foster and develop those relationships. As we've been experiencing this kind of remote work in hybrid work world, especially coming through COVID and out of the pandemic, and then still negotiating that in many organizations today of what the relationship between remote work and hybrid work and in-person work is, what we've seen is there are many studies in some cases that have shown that there are certain people that are much more effective in person in the office. We also know there are many people that their performance on the job is actually even goes up in a remote environment, that there are many that is the case. But we also know even as performance may go up in different environments, sometimes the remote environment can lead to more isolation and more disconnection, which actually the satisfaction and the health of people goes down. So the combination between how we do the work, where we do the work, but also keeping the connection of those close social relationships is as important as ever. And again, it doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everybody, but the research really shows if we have more connected relationships at work, not only are we more happy and satisfied, but the performance of our work goes up. Character and virtue, the third dimension they talk about. Well, the best teams and cultures are rooted in core values and practicing behaviors that bring out the best in all. And when I say that, of course, you know that when I talk about core values or guiding principles or language, it's not about having great posters. It's about, are your posters in your people? And part of that is really, when we talk about what is the character and the virtue of the work that we're doing together, how are we committed to doing the job is just as important as the actual task or the deliverable. And the best places to work, time and time again, they know this. That's a part of culture shaping is, can we articulate the temperature that we're trying to set and how we show up? What does it look like in action and behavior and character, the way we show up to do the work together? And that will continue to be important moving forward. The fourth dimension, mental and physical health. This is obvious as well, but well-being, we used to think of mental and physical health as something you worry about after work. Now we know that well-being is just it's more known and it's more focused on and practiced on within organizations, that if people are healthier in their mind and physically, they also are happier, but they perform better. So not only because it's the right thing to do, which is the reason number one of if an organization, if you listen to my episode where I said organizational cultures are the shelter we provide for people. I did a whole episode about that if we truly care for the people that we work with, then that means we are committed to, in our culture, of how do we raise our level of mental and physical health. And that's the first reason, is just to care for our people, because we are in relationship with them as an employer and as an employee. We're in relationship together, but also because people perform better when they are healthy in their mind and health. So strategically, for cultures and for organizations to be thinking more mindfully and intentionally about raising the level of mental and physical health and support is just a smart thing to do. The fifth dimension they talk about is happiness and life satisfaction. And what I'll say about that is the best cultures, the best teams, the best leaders, the best organizations, they want their people to thrive and they want them to flourish and they want them to have wonderful lives, not only at their work, but congruent with what is that life that they're hoping to have outside of things. And so they take a posture of listening to their people and trying to understand and trying to help them find a rhythm between their life and their work, and bringing about the things that bring them happiness and joy and satisfaction. And they, again, the cultures and the leaders and the organizations and the employees together to all take ownership and helping to try to support that in each other. And then the last one is obvious, the last sixth dimension, but financial and material stability, which I think, is certainly a part of the puzzle. But as you've heard me talk about in past stats, financial and material stability is always a human need and is always going to be important. But what we also know across other organizational studies is it's not the lead. That people actually, oftentimes we think people just want more money. But the reality is, of course, everybody wants enough money and financial and material stability, but they also want more than that. And so it's a piece of the puzzle, but the meaning and purpose and relationships and character and virtue and mental, physical health and happiness and life satisfaction all in many cases outweigh this, but there has to be financial and material stability. And so our places of employment have the opportunity to help their people feel stable and cared for, of course, financially. And again, it's not the lead, but it is absolutely a piece of the puzzle. And the last time we checked, it takes money to do most things in the world. And so when an organization can really, more than fairly compensate people and help them find the meaning and purpose and relationships and character and virtue and mental and physical health and happiness and life satisfaction to bring their gifts to serve something bigger than themselves, that's where you have these places that retain the best people, attract more people, and their performance metrics go up. So what we know is the best workplace cultures into the future are going to continue to be more and more intentional about setting the temperature of all of these 6 dimensions. Culture shaping matters more than ever right now within organizations and within our world. So, as always, let me leave you with a couple of questions to ponder, some things to think about coming out of this episode. Which of the 6 dimensions needs the attention of your team or your organization? Of course, they all need our attention, but are there a couple of those that say, man, I think that's an area for us to improve or to give our focus to? What are you proactively doing to develop the mindsets of your people and your culture? What are you doing to help the relationships at your work flourish? I hope today's episode got you thinking in some ways. I hope it was a good kind of build upon from the last episode that we did. So again, cheers to you, cheers to us on the path ahead, and I hope this helps you step back and think about the temperature you're trying to set in your life and your work. If you have any thoughts, if you have any feedback, if you have ideas for us, or you're looking for support for your team, your organization, building your culture, shaping and developing your people, or that clarity around mission, vision, and values, please reach out to us, info@jasonvbarger.com, on email, info@jasonvbarger.com. You can track us down through the website, jasonvbarger.com, or on social media @jasonvbarger. We'd love to chat with you and see if there's an authentic way that we can help support the development of people and culture in your life and in your work. So thanks again for everybody that subscribes, that rates, that reviews, that shares the podcast with the people around them. That helps amplify this message even further, and I hope you'll take the time to do that. And the last thing I'll remind us all of is to step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.